Camille Elaine Johnson, 34, dies unexpectedly.
Stop digging, or we'll bury you for real.
TikTok.
Camille Johnson was sipping her morning coffee when her own obituary stared back at her from the front page of the Chicago Tribune. It wasn't a mistake. It was a threat. Camille, a 34-year-old freelance journalist in Chicago, wakes up to find her obituary in the newspaper. The details aren't random. They include intimate secrets only someone close could know. The obituary ends with a chilling date. Next Friday, her supposed death day. As Camille scrambles to uncover who's behind this psychological attack, every lead points to someone she once trusted. But the deeper she digs, the more she realizes this isn't about killing her. It's about breaking her first. Over 12 chapters, the story spirals through gaslighting, digital manipulation, old grudges, and hidden crimes culminating in a truth that ties back to a case Camille buried years ago. Before we get into the case file, just a quick note. If stories of hidden motives, dead ends, and unexpected turns are your thing, make sure you're subscribed. Hit the bell so the next mystery finds you first. Now, let's open the file. The knock came first. Light, polite. 2 taps against the old oak door of her South Side apartment. Camille froze mid-step, a spoon dripping honey into her mug. No one knocked this early. Another knock. 3 taps this time. Then silence. She set the mug down and padded barefoot across the cool wood floor, heart already racing. Something about the quiet after the knock, it wasn't right. Camille pressed her eye to the peephole. Empty hallway. She cracked the door open a few inches. A folded Chicago Tribune lay on the mat, the plastic wrap glistening from last night's rain. But she didn't subscribe. Hadn't in years. Pulling it inside, she tore off the damp wrap and spread it across the counter. Her gaze skimmed the headlines. Mayor pushes gun reform. Lakeshore Drive crash kills 2. And then, Camille Elaine Johnson, 34, dies unexpectedly. Her stomach plunged. The obituary filled half a column on page A3, her name bold at the top. Her birthday, her neighborhood, her college, Howard University, class of 2012. The photo was one of her favorites, a candid from her Instagram 2 summers ago, laughing at a rooftop bar. She read the first line twice before it sank in. Camille Johnson, beloved daughter, sister, and friend, passed away peacefully at her home on May 14, 2025. Her breath came short. Today was May 7th. Camille's eyes darted to the end. The part families used to honor the dead with softness and love. Except this one wasn't soft. She will be remembered for her persistence, her courage, and for knowing when to keep a secret. Her hand trembled as she reached the final sentence. A private service will be held on Friday, May 14, 2025. Next Friday. Her phone buzzed on the counter, lighting up with a name that made her throat tighten. Elliot. She hadn't spoken to Elliot in 6 months. Not since. No. She pushed the thought away and answered, voice cracking. Camille. His deep voice came through, calm but urgent. You got the paper, didn't you? She froze, fingers gripping the edge of the counter. How do you... Don't hang up, Elliot said. They know about everything. The line went dead. Camille stared at the obituary again, her pulse thudding in her ears. Outside, the neighborhood was waking up. Cars starting. Dogs barking. But inside her kitchen, the world tilted into something cold and merciless. She wasn't dead. Not yet. But someone wanted her to believe she was. The city was alive outside her window horns. Distant chatter. A garbage truck groaning down the block, but Camille couldn't hear any of it. The obituary sat like a corpse on her counter, ink bleeding slightly from the damp edges. Her own face stared back at her in grayscale, smiling like a stranger. She dialed Elliot before she could think twice. It rang once before a click, then static. Finally, his voice, low and tight. "You shouldn't call me from your apartment," he said. Her grip on the phone tightened. "Then why the hell did you call me?" Pause. Then, "Because you needed to hear it from me first." "They're not playing around, Camille. This isn't a joke." She pressed a hand to her forehead, trying to steady her breath. "Who's they? And what do you mean? They know about everything." "What everything?" "Lower your voice," Elliot snapped. A muffled sound in the background, maybe a door closing, footsteps. Then softer. "Do you still have the file?" Her pulse spiked. "What file?" "Don't," he said. "Don't do that thing where you pretend you don't remember." Camille swallowed hard. Of course she remembered. The investigation. The source who went missing. The story she buried, because printing it would have burned her entire life down. And Elliot, he was the only other person who knew. She stared at the obituary again, her voice barely a whisper. "What's happening, Elliot?" A scrape of metal on his end, like he was moving something heavy. Then, "I can't talk long. They want you to feel cornered. Afraid, like you've got no way out. That's how they win." Camille's throat burned. "Why me? Why now?" A beat of silence. Then his words came slow and deliberate. "Because the man you wrote about 5 years ago, he's back. And he doesn't forget." Before she could respond, the line went dead again. Camille sat frozen on her couch, the phone limp in her hand. The obituary lay across the coffee table like evidence in a case against her, 5 years ago. That story, the one she never published, the one that got her blacklisted from half the papers in Chicago, it was supposed to be gone. Dead and buried. A loud thud jolted her. The sound came from the back of the apartment. Her bedroom. Camille rose slowly, every nerve lit. She grabbed the nearest thing, a cast-iron skillet, and crept down the hallway. The air felt heavier, like the apartment was holding its breath. The door to her bedroom was ajar. It hadn't been when she left it. Camille nudged it open with the skillet raised. Her stomach dropped. Someone had been inside. Her dresser drawers gaped open, clothes spilling out. The bed was ransacked, sheets torn off and tossed aside. But that wasn't the worst part. On the pillow, propped like a gift, was a single white rose, its petals pristine. And underneath it, her obituary creased and worn, like it had been folded into a pocket. Only now, there was a new line scrawled across the bottom in blood-red ink. "Stop digging, or we'll bury you for real." Her breath hitched. The skillet slipped from her grip and clanged against the hardwood. Camille backed toward the door, heart pounding so hard it hurt. Her mind screamed for her to run, to call someone, anyone. But then she noticed something that froze her in place. In the corner of the room, on her desk, her laptop was open. She hadn't left it that way. And on the glowing screen was a document, one line typed in the center. "Hello, Camille. Let's write your last story together." Camille stared at the laptop screen, like it might leap at her. The blinking cursor pulsed in the middle of the sentence. "Hello, Camille. Let's write your last story together." Her hand hovered over the mouse, but she couldn't move. Couldn't breathe. The apartment felt colder, like all the heat had been siphoned out through the cracks. She snatched her phone and dialed 911 with shaking fingers. "Chicago Emergency Services. What's your emergency?" "There's been a break-in," Camille blurted. "My apartment?" Someone's been in here." "They?" Her voice cracked. "They left something. A threat. Ma'am, are you safe right now?" Camille's eyes flicked to the hallway. Every shadow felt like it had teeth. "I think so," she whispered. "They're gone. But please send someone." The dispatcher promised a unit in 10 minutes. 10 minutes felt like a lifetime. She forced herself back into the bedroom, eyes scanning the desk. Her laptop glowed steady, humming faintly. The document still stared back, that line like a taunt. She wanted to close it, but curiosity burned hotter than fear. She scrolled down. A second sentence appeared, typed as she watched. "Did you like your obituary?" Camille's chest tightened. She slammed the laptop shut like it was breathing poison and stumbled backward, knocking over the desk chair. A clatter echoed through the apartment. A soft knock at the front door made her heart lurch. Already? Cops don't move that fast. Camille? It's Elliot. She froze. Elliot stood in the hall, his hood pulled low, eyes darting both ways like a man expecting gunfire. When she opened the door, he slipped inside fast, locking it behind him. "You shouldn't be here," Camille hissed. "If someone's watching." "They already are," Elliot cut in. His gaze swept the room, sharp and restless, until it landed on the white rose still sitting on the bed. His jaw tightened. "They know you called me," he said quietly. Camille swallowed. "Who are they? You really don't remember?" He stepped closer, voice dropping. "That piece you worked on? The councilman and the construction deal. The missing girl. You think they just let that go because you shelved it?" "No, Camille. They waited." Her throat went dry. "For what?" "For this," Elliot said, pulling something from his jacket. A folded newspaper. He tossed it onto the table. Camille unfolded it with numb fingers. Another obituary stared up at her. This time, it wasn't hers. It was Elliot's. Elliot Raymond Pierce, 38, passed away unexpectedly. Same style, same eerie detail. Date of death, May 14th, 2025. Her stomach clenched. They wrote yours too?" "Mine showed up yesterday," he said flatly. "That's why I called you." Camille's pulse roared in her ears. 2 obituaries. One date, Friday. "This isn't just a threat," Elliot said. His voice was calm, in a way that scared her more than shouting. "It's a countdown." The police arrived 20 minutes later too late to see Elliot, who slipped out the back stairwell as soon as they buzzed. Detective Marcus Clay was first through the door, a man with the kind of presence that sucked all the air from the room. Tall, lean, early, 40s with a face carved from suspicion. "Walk me through it," he said, eyes flicking from Camille to the ransacked bedroom. She explained everything, finding the obituary, the rose, the message on her laptop. When she got to Elliot's name, she hesitated, gave the bare minimum. The less they knew, the safer for him. Or maybe for her. Clay listened without expression, jotting in a small leather notebook. Then, "You've had trouble before, haven't you?" Camille stiffened. "What do you mean?" He tilted his head. "A story you worked on. Some city contracts. You pissed off the wrong people once." Her blood ran cold. How does he know about that? "I'm not saying it's connected," Clay said, his eyes steady on hers. "But if someone wanted to scare you off, this would do it." Camille forced a shaky laugh. "Scare me off what? I haven't published anything in months." "Maybe they think you will." He closed his notebook with a snap. "If I were you, Miss Johnson, I'd leave town for a few days." He turned to leave, then paused at the door. "One more thing." He slipped a card from his pocket and placed it on the counter. "You see another obituary, anyone's, you call me first." Camille stared at the card long after the door shut. Detective Marcus Clay, Homicide Division, homicide. As if this was already a murder case. Later that night, Camille sat in the dark, laptop closed, phone silent. The obituary lay under a glass on the coffee table like something venomous. Elliot's warning gnawed at her. "It's a countdown." She got up for water, passed the window, and froze. Across the street, in the glow of a street lamp, a man stood perfectly still, his face hidden under a black ball cap. He wasn't looking at his phone, wasn't moving, just staring up at her window. In his hand was something white, a rose. Camille's breath fogged the glass, as she stared at the man under the street lamp, still as stone, that white rose dangling from his hand like a quiet dare. She ducked back, heart pounding, then peeked again. The street was empty, gone. Camille backed away from the window, chest tight. Every instinct screamed to call someone Elliot, the cops, but what would she say? A man stared at me. They'd write her off as paranoid. Her phone vibrated on the counter. She lunged for it. Unknown number. She answered, voice sharp. Who is this? Silence. Hello? A click. The line went dead. Her phone chimed again, this time a text from Elliot. They're watching you. Don't go outside. Then another, seconds later. There's a second list. Find it before they do. Camille stared at the words, a chill crawling up her spine. A second list? Of what? She didn't sleep. Couldn't. Every creak in the old building sounded like footsteps coming for her. By 2 a.m., she gave up pretending and opened her laptop. The screen flickered to life, the same document still waiting. Hello, Camille. Let's write your last story together. Her stomach knotted. She moved the cursor to close it and froze. A tiny icon blinked in the corner. Shared document. Her breath caught. Someone was in the file. Right now. Watching her. She hovered over the icon. No username. Just a blank gray circle pulsing, like a heartbeat. Then letters appeared, one by one, as if typed by an invisible hand. Check your childhood. Camille slammed the laptop shut, panic clawing her throat. What the hell did that mean? She paced, mind racing. Childhood? A clue? A threat? Both? Her apartment felt smaller by the second, walls pressing in. Finally, she yanked open her closet, dragging out the battered storage bin she hadn't touched in years-old photos, school yearbooks, her Howard acceptance letter. At the bottom, she found a tiny blue box with peeling stickers, Cammie's treasures. Inside, a friendship bracelet, some Polaroids, and a stack of floppy disks from middle school. She laughed harsh, broken. Who even owned a floppy drive anymore? She was shoving the box back when something caught her eye, a folded piece of paper, taped to the underside of the lid. Yellowed. Fragile. She peeled it free and unfolded it with trembling hands. One sentence scrawled in childish handwriting. If I disappear, find the list. Underneath, a name. Her best friend from 7th grade. Janelle. Camille's pulse roared. Janelle had vanished the summer before high school. Everyone said she ran away. Camille whispered into the empty room. Oh my God. Her phone buzzed again. Another text from Elliot. They're accelerating the timeline. Before she could reply, her laptop chimed. Against her better judgment, she opened it. The document had changed. Now it displayed a single line. You have 3 days left. Check the Tribune tomorrow. Page A3. Camille's fingers trembled on the keys. She typed, What do you want from me? Pause. Then the reply blinked onto the screen. The truth. Start with Janelle. She stared at the name like it was a wound reopening after decades. Her childhood friend. The missing girl. The story she buried 5 years ago. Camille backed away from the laptop, her heart slamming like fists on a locked door. Outside, a car engine idled. Long, low, waiting. And on her kitchen counter, under the cold glow of the overhead light, lay the first white rose. Only now there were 2. Camille didn't sleep. Her nerves were strung so tight they hummed in the silence. At dawn, she sat on the couch fully dressed, waiting for the delivery guy to hit the lobby with his stack of newspapers. When the sound came, the clatter of a cart, she was already moving. She didn't care that her neighbors stared as she tore through the front page in the hallway, her fingers trembling ink onto her jeans. It wasn't on page 1. Not on page 2. Then her eyes landed on a 3. Another obituary. Not hers. This time, it was Maya Pearson, 35. A name Camille hadn't said aloud in nearly 10 years. Her throat locked. Maya had been Janelle's cousin, the one who spent that summer with them, the summer before Janelle vanished. Camille remembered her laugh, loud and easy, and the way she swore she'd never go back to Mississippi. The obituary was short. Too short. But the details cut deep. She will be remembered for her loyalty, her devotion to family, and for never telling what she knew. Camille's stomach rolled. That last line, it wasn't mourning. It was a warning. Her phone buzzed. Another text from Elliot. They're circling in. Noon. Meet me at the old Burnham Library. Back entrance. Come alone. She shoved the paper in her tote and bolted for the train. The Burnham Library had been dead for years, its grand stone face choked with ivy, windows boarded up like tired eyes. Camille's sneakers crunched glass as she crept along the side alley, heart banging like a loose shutter in a storm. The back door hung crooked on rusted hinges. She slipped inside. The smell hid first mildew and paper rot, thick enough to taste. Dust motes swirled in the shaft of light, cutting through a cracked skylight. Stacks of forgotten books loomed like dark sentinels. Elliot? Her voice bounced off the walls. No answer. She moved deeper, past broken tables and toppled chairs, until she reached what had once been the reading room. A lone lantern glowed on the floor, throwing long, sharp shadows across the cracked tiles. Beside it lay a manila envelope with her name scrawled in red marker. Her breath snagged. She knelt, fingers trembling as she tore it open. Inside were photographs faded, curling at the edges. The first made her blood run cold. Janelle, maybe 13, standing in front of a brick building with 2 men towering behind her. One wore a city council pin. The other's face was blurred, but something about the posture, the sharp suit, the heavy watch twisted in her gut. Camille flipped through the rest. Maya in the background of a ribbon-cutting ceremony. A group of teenage girls at a block party, and then one that made her knees go weak. It was Camille herself, younger, holding a notebook, smiling at Janelle on that same summer day. Scrawled on the back in block letters. She knows. A sharp creak cut through the silence. Camille spun, heart jackhammering. At the far end of the room, a shadow shifted behind a column. Elliot? Her voice cracked. Nothing. The shadow moved again, slow and deliberate. And then a figure stepped into the glow of the lantern. Not Elliot. Detective Marcus Clay. Ms. Johnson, he said softly, his expression unreadable. You really shouldn't be here. Camille's mouth went dry. How did you? I told you to call me if you found another obituary. His eyes flicked to the envelope in her hands. Looks like you found more than that. She clutched the photos tighter, her voice barely a whisper. What is this? Why are there pictures of me? Clay stepped closer, his shoes crunching grit, and for the first time, Camille saw something behind his calm something cold. Because, Camille, he said, lowering his voice, you've been part of this since the beginning. Her pulse spiked like an alarm. That's not true. He gave a thin smile. Isn't it? Before she could speak, a loud crack echoed through the library, a door slamming somewhere in the dark. Both of them froze. Then a voice called out, sharp and tense. Camille, run, Elliot. Camille turned, legs surging with panic. The photos spilled from her hands as she bolted into the shadows, Clay's voice snapping behind her. Don't make this worse for yourself. Her breath tore through her lungs as she sprinted down a narrow hall, Elliot's silhouette flashing ahead. Behind them, heavy footsteps thundered in pursuit. And then, just as she reached the side door, she saw it. Spray-painted in black across the peeling plaster, a message that made her blood go ice. List number 2. 7 names. 3 are already dead. Underneath, in dripping letters. Who do you think is next? The night air hit Camille like a slap when they burst out of the side door, lungs heaving, shoes skidding on cracked pavement. Elliot didn't stop running until they were 2 blocks away, ducking into the shadow of an abandoned diner. "Give me your phone," he demanded, voice raw. "What? Why?" "They're tracking you." His hand was out, hard eyes cutting through the dark. "Camille, now." Her pulse stuttered as she fumbled it out. He snatched it, popped the case, yanked the SIM card, and flung it into the gutter like a grenade. "They'll know where you breathe," Elliot said. She stared at him, shaking. "What the hell is happening, Elliot? That wall 7 names? And Clay, he was there. Why was he there?" Elliot scanned the street before answering. His voice dropped low, urgent. "Clay isn't just a cop. He's been on their payroll for years." Camille's stomach flipped. "There? The same people who funded that councilman you almost burned in your story. The same ones who buried Janelle." His jaw tightened. "And now they're tying up loose ends." Camille's breath hitched. "Janelle's on the list." Elliot nodded once. "So is Maya. So am I." The weight of his words sank like stones in her gut. "And me," she whispered. "Yeah," he said. "You're number 4. They holed up in a cheap motel off Cicero Avenue, the kind of place that smelled like mildew and bad decisions. Camille sat on the edge of the bed, her mind clawing through memories of Janelle, the laughter, the shared secrets, the day she vanished like smoke. "I thought she ran away," Camille murmured. "We all did. They wanted you to think that." Elliot paced the small room like a caged animal. "Janelle saw something she wasn't supposed to. She told you, didn't she?" Camille's pulse jumped. She dug into her memory, back to that sticky July night, the 2 of them whispering under a streetlight. Janelle had been crying. Camille remembered holding her hand, the way her voice shook when she said, "If anything happens, it wasn't an accident." Camille's throat closed. She said they'd hurt her if she talked. Elliot stopped pacing, his gaze locked on hers. "And then she disappeared? Just like that?" Camille swallowed hard, guilt curling in her gut. "I didn't tell anyone. I was 13. You thought staying quiet would keep you safe." His voice softened. "But silence doesn't make you safe. It makes you next." Camille's phone was gone, her laptop back in that cursed apartment, and every instinct told her the walls were closing in. "What do we do?" she whispered. Elliot glanced at the grimy blinds, then back at her. "We find the list before Clay does. And we figure out who's running this before Friday." "Why Friday?" He looked at her like it should be obvious. "Because that's when your obituary says you die." Hours later, while Elliot showered, Camille couldn't sit still. She opened the manila envelope again, laying the photos across the bed. Her eyes snagged on one in particular, a ribbon-cutting ceremony. Maya in the background. And beside her, half-turned from the camera, was a man Camille recognized. Not from childhood, from last year. A name clawed up her throat. Victor Langston. Billionaire developer. The same man she'd tried to expose for bribing city officials to seize public land. The story that got her blacklisted. Her blood ran cold. Langston was more than a businessman. He was a kingmaker. If he was tied to Janelle and Maya, if he was behind the list, then this wasn't just revenge. This was an empire cleaning house. The bathroom door creaked open. Elliot stepped out, towel slung low, steam curling behind him. "You're not sleeping," he said. She shook her head, shoving the photo toward him. "Victor Langston, look." Elliot's jaw clenched. "Yeah," he said. "That's the man Janelle saw that night." Before Camille could reply, a sudden thunk hit the window, a sound sharp enough to cut the air. They froze. Another thunk, a slow scrape against the glass. Camille crept forward, heart in her throat. The blinds rattled as she lifted one slat, and her breath stopped. A single white rose hung upside down from the window frame, tied with red string, its petals dripping with something dark and wet, blood, and beneath it, scrawled in crimson across the filthy glass, 4 down, 3 to go. Camille stared at the window, her pulse hammering in her throat. The rose dangled like a warning, its petals heavy with blood that dripped in slow, fat drops down the glass. She stumbled back, a strangled sound clawing out of her chest. "Don't touch it," Elliot said sharply, yanking the blinds shut with one swift motion. His voice was flat, cold, too calm for what they were looking at. Camille's knees hit the edge of the bed. 4 down, she whispered. "That means someone else from the list. Died tonight," Elliot finished, reaching for the envelope. He scattered the photos across the bed like a deck of cursed cards. 7 names. Janelle, Maya, me, you. His finger jabbed the air. "That's 4. Who are the others?" Camille's thoughts spun like loose wheels. She remembered the wall in the library, the dripping letters. List number 2, 7 names. 3 are already dead. Now it said 4, which meant whoever left that rose. They weren't bluffing. "Do you know?" she asked, voice shaking. "The other names?" Elliot hesitated, and that single beat of silence cracked something open inside her. "You do," Camille said, her voice dropping to a whisper edged with steel. "You've known this whole time." Elliot ran a hand over his face. When he finally spoke, his voice was low, raw. When Janelle disappeared, she wasn't the only one who saw something. Maya knew too. And he exhaled hard. "So did I." Camille felt the air leave her lungs. "You never told me that." "Because if I did, you'd be on the list right alongside me." His eyes bored into hers. "And now you are." Before she could fire back, Camille's laptop, brought from the apartment hours earlier by Elliot, in a moment of risk, chimed from the knitstand. A soft, innocent sound that sliced through the tension like a blade. She lunged for it. The screen glowed. An email sat in her inbox, no subject, no sender. Just a single attachment, video_0712.mp4. Her fingers hovered. "What is this?" Elliot shook his head, stepping closer. "Don't open it." But Camille was already clicking. The video stuttered to life. Grainy, low light. A shaky camera. It looked like it was shot on a phone. 2 figures came into view. One was Janelle, 13 years old, skinny arms clutching a backpack, her face pale under the flicker of a streetlight. She was crying. The other figure towered over her. A man in a dark suit. The camera angle hid his face, but his voice low, smooth, commanding, curled through the speakers like smoke. "You understand, right? You keep quiet. You live. You talk." A pause. "And your little friends die first." Janelle nodded hard, tears streaking her cheeks. Camille's chest caved in on itself. She wanted to scream at the screen. "Run, Janelle. Please run." The man turned slightly, just enough for the light to kiss the side of his face. Camille's blood froze. Victor Langston. Her heart kicked like a spooked horse. "Oh my God," she whispered. "It's him." Elliot's jaw locked. This was never just about you. Langston wants every trace of what happened erased. Camille clutched the laptop like it might dissolve in her hands. "Then why keep me alive?" Elliot's eyes met hers, and for the first time, there was something like fear flickering there. "Because he doesn't just want you dead," he said. "He wants to make an example out of you." Before Camille could respond, the video ended and another window popped open on the screen. A live feed. Camille froze. It was her apartment. Her kitchen, bathed in the sick glow of the overhead light. Someone was standing in it, back to the camera, hands calmly arranging a bouquet of white roses in a vase. Then, slowly, the figure turned. Detective Marcus Clay. And he was smiling. The glow from the laptop screen burned through the dark like a spotlight on a secret no one should see. Camille couldn't move, couldn't breathe. Detective Marcus Clay filled the frame standing in her kitchen like he owned the air in it, like her apartment was nothing more than a stage he'd been waiting to step onto. In the feed, Clay adjusted the bouquet of roses with the same slow care someone might give a corpse. One by one, their pale petals caught the light. 11 stems. Camille's heart tripped. 11 why 11? The cursor blinked, then words appeared beneath the live feed in stark black letters. Bring me the file, or the next obituary is Elliot's. Camille's throat locked. Elliot was already leaning over her shoulder, his breath sharp and ragged. They know we've got the laptop, he said. No, Camille whispered. They think we've got something else. She pointed to the demand. What file? Elliot swore under his breath and started pacing the motel floor, the boards creaking under his boots. It's leverage. Langston must think you kept a copy of your old investigation, the one you killed before print. If he gets that, it's game over. Camille's pulse roared in her ears. I didn't keep it. I deleted everything years ago. Are you sure? Elliot stopped pacing, eyes slicing into hers. Because if Clay thinks it exists, someone told him that. Her stomach pitched. Someone had told him. Someone close. Someone who knew every angle of that story. And there was only one person left who did. Elliot. Camille's voice was a low tremor. You were my only source back then. His jaw tightened. For a moment, just a moment, she saw something flicker behind his eyes. Guilt. Before she could speak, her laptop chimed again. The live feed shifted Clay, moving closer to the camera. His face filled the screen, every line sharp as a blade. Time's running out, Camille. His voice, deep and calm, curled like smoke through the tinny speakers. Tick-tock. The screen went black. Camille slammed the laptop shut and staggered to her feet. We need to move. Elliot grabbed her arm. Where? She yanked free, her mind a storm of images. Chanel's note, the childhood box, the words find the list. My old neighborhood, she said. There's something I need to check. Janelle left a clue. I think I know where. Elliot didn't like it. She could see it in the hard set of his jaw, but he didn't argue. The streets of South Shore hadn't changed much since Camille was 13. Same rows of tired brick houses, same corner store with the flickering neon. As they drove past the park, memories rose like ghost summer heat shimmering off the swings, Chanel's voice carrying on the wind. If anything happens, it wasn't an accident. They parked 2 blocks from Camille's childhood home, now abandoned and sagging like an old man's shoulders. The yard was overgrown, chain-link gate hanging crooked. The place smelled of damp and rust, the kind of rot that eats through years. Inside, the air was thick with dust and silence. Camille moved fast, her flashlight slicing through the dark. She went straight for the bedroom she once shared with her sister. Her old desk sat shoved against the wall, warped from water damage. She knelt, fingers tracing the underside of the drawer. Her breath snagged when she felt it a tiny ridge of tape. With trembling hands, Camille peeled it free. A metal key, no bigger than her thumb, dropped into her palm. On the tape, a single word in faded ink, Eden. Before she could process it, glass shattered somewhere in the house. Camille whipped around, flashlight beam cutting through the dark in jagged arcs. Elliot froze, his hand already on the grip of the gun tucked at his waistband. Then a voice floated from the shadows, calm, cold, familiar. Leaving so soon? Marcus Clay stepped into the weak glow of the flashlight, his badge glinting like a cruel joke. He held the gun, not pointed at her, at Elliot. Don't move, Clay said, his smile thin as wire. Looks like I get 2 birds after all. Camille's blood turned to ice. And then Clay tilted his head, eyes never leaving hers, and said something that hollowed her out. Tell me, Camille, do you even know why Janelle died? Coming next in Part 9. Clay forces Camille into a devastating choice hand over the key or watch Elliot die. But when she slips, he reveals the truth about Janelle's disappearance and the Eden connection, a name that opens a vault of corruption tied to Langston's empire. Meanwhile, Camille realizes Elliot has been hiding a betrayal that could destroy them both. Clay's gun gleamed in the thin beam of Camille's flashlight, a dull promise of blood. Elliot stood rigid, hands raised, jaw tight, every muscle coiled like a wire ready to snap. Put it down, Clay, Elliot said, voice flat, calm in a way that made Camille's skin prickle. Clay smiled without warmth. Cute. You think you're in a position to negotiate? He took a slow step forward, boots crunching broken glass. Give me the key, Camille. Her pulse slammed. She gripped the small piece of metal in her fist, so tight it cut her palm. What's Eden? She asked, her voice shaking but sharp. Clay tilted his head, amusement flickering in his eyes. Eden is the beginning and the end. The garden where all the dirt grows, he chuckled. You really don't know? Janelle died for it. And you're about to do the same. Camille's throat locked. Janelle died for this? Clay's voice softened, almost pitying. Hand it over, and maybe I'll let your friend here keep breathing. Elliot's glare cut to Camille. Don't. Her heart ricocheted between them like a trapped bird. Clay's finger curled tighter on the trigger. 3 seconds, Clay said, his voice a low drumbeat. 1, Camille's mind screamed. She thought of Janelle's smile, Maya's laugh, the faces on the wall in the library, all gone. All erased because of men like Clay. 2, Camille moved. Not toward Clay, toward the rotted floorboard at her feet. She stomped hard, the wood splintering, dropping her to one knee. The key flew from her fist, clattering into the darkness. Clay swore, spinning his gun down toward her. And Elliot moved like a shadow with teeth. The gun went off, deafening in the small room, the blast slamming into plaster. Camille dove, ears ringing, as Elliot tackled Clay into the wall. The two men crashed in a tangle of fists and fury. Camille scrambled for the key, her hands slapping through dust and shards until her fingers closed around cold metal. She stuffed it into her pocket and ran for the doorway, just as Clay slammed, Elliot's head against the wall with a sickening crack. Elliot! She screamed, spinning back, but Clay was already on his feet, gun swinging toward her. Then headlights slashed across the broken windows, and tires screeched outside. A black SUV roared up to the curb, its engine growling like a predator. Clay's smile turned feral. Looks like my ride's here. Camille bolted down the hall as the front door blew inward, men in dark suits pouring through with guns drawn. She sprinted through the kitchen, Clay's voice snapping after her like a whip. Run all you want, Camille. You can't outrun Eden. She crashed through the back door into the night, lungs on fire, legs churning through weeds and mud. Behind her, gunfire ripped the silence. Elliot shouted a sound that sliced her in half. She didn't look back. Couldn't. She didn't stop running until she reached the dead end of an alley, her body shaking, breath sawing out in ragged pulls. Her ears still rang from the shot, but one thought pounded louder than all the rest. What is Eden? Camille yanked the key from her pocket, holding it under the jaundiced glow of a street lamp. Small, unmarked, but etched along its edge, almost invisible, was a number, 117. Her phone was gone. Elliot was gone, maybe dead. And now Clay had an army behind him. Camille closed her eyes against the surge of panic. Think, Cammy, think. And then it hit her like a blade between the ribs. Eden wasn't just a name. It was a place. Unit 117. The Eden Storage Facility. She remembered the news piece 2 years back, a sprawling self-storage complex Langston had bought for urban redevelopment. No one questioned why a billionaire cared about a storage facility. Camille shoved the key into her pocket and whispered into the night, "Janelle, what the hell did you leave me?" Behind her, a car engine rumbled to life, slow, predatory. Headlights flared at the mouth of the alley, flooding her in white. A voice floated from the shadows, smooth as silk and twice as deadly. "Camille, get in the car." Victor Langston stepped into the light. Camille froze in the alley's glare, the key burning against her thigh like a brand. Langston stood just beyond the car's high beams, dressed in a charcoal suit so sharp it looked like it could cut glass. No tie, no pretense, just power in human skin. "Get in the car," he said again, voice smooth as oil sliding across water. Camille's throat locked. "Why don't you pull the trigger like your friends in there?" Langston's smile was a blade. "Guns are for men with no imagination. I prefer leverage." He gestured toward the car, casual as a man inviting someone to lunch. "Come on, let's have a conversation." The door behind him opened. A man in a black suit stepped out, broad as a doorframe, his hand resting on a holstered weapon. Camille's pulse roared. Running wasn't an option, not with that alley boxed in. Her only move was forward. She slid into the leather seat, the door shutting behind her with a sound like the world sealing off. The car smelled of money and menace, that faint leather and expensive Scotch scent that clung to men who thought they owned everything they touched. Langston slid in beside her, folding his hands over his knee. His watch gleamed under the dome, light gold, heavy, obscene. "Relax," he murmured. "If I wanted you dead, you'd already be a headline. Or an obituary." Camille shot back. Her voice was steady, but her nails bit crescents into her palms. Langston's smile widened. "Ah, so you've been reading the paper." "Cut the crap," she snapped. "What do you want?" His gaze flicked to her pocket. "The key." Camille's chest clenched. "What's in Eden?" Langston leaned back, eyes gleaming like a predator savoring the chase. "History, secrets, enough to ruin men like me." He tilted his head. "And enough to make you disappear for good if you're not careful." Camille swallowed hard. "Janelle died because of Eden." Langston's smile dimmed, just a fraction. "Janelle." He exhaled, almost wistful. That girl didn't know when to keep her mouth shut. Pity. She was smart. The rage that surged through Camille nearly blinded her. "You killed her." Langston didn't flinch. "No, I paid men to clean up her mistake. Difference matters." He studied her, eyes sharp as razors. "Here's your choice, Camille. Give me the key, and you'll walk away breathing. Keep it, and Elliot Pierce dies tonight." Slowly, her blood iced. "You have him?" Langston's smile was all teeth. "He wasn't hard to find. You think loyalty is free?" Camille's heart slammed. "Elliot. Oh, God." Langston leaned closer, voice dropping to a whisper meant to crawl under her skin. "You think you can save him?" "You can't. He's been mine for years." The words detonated in her head. "You're lying." Langston chuckled low. "Am I? Who do you think tipped us off about your old files? Who do you think led Clay to that library?" His eyes glittered. "Elliot played you like a hymn." Camille's stomach lurched. She wanted to call him a liar, to spit in his face, but the pieces were sliding into place like teeth in a trap. Elliot's silence, his secrets, the way he always showed up just in time. Her hand tightened around the key in her pocket. "Tick-tock," Langston murmured, his breath warm against her ear. "That storage unit is the only thing keeping you alive. Decide what's worth more, your crusade or your friend's heartbeat." The SUV slowed, pulling to the curb at an intersection choked with shadows. Langston's man popped the door. "Go on," Langston said softly. "Run to Eden. I'll even give you a head start. But remember, Camille, every step you take, Elliot bleeds. Camille slid out of the car, her legs shaky, but her spine steel. The door shut with a cold click, and the SUV melted back into the night. She stood there, chest heaving, the key clenched so hard her knuckles ached. Elliot, betrayal, Janelle, the truth sitting in a metal box with her name on it. She had 3 days, maybe less, and she wasn't running anymore. Camille pulled up her hood and whispered into the wind. Time to open Eden. Rain slicked the streets like black glass as Camille approached the Eden storage facility. The building rose out of the night like a fortress-gray concrete walls, razor wire curling on top, cameras blinking like watchful eyes. The glowing sign above the gate read, Eden Storage, safe, secure, silent. Safe, she thought bitterly, gripping the key in her pocket. For who? She waited until the guard shack light flickered out during the storm, then slipped through a side gate hanging half-broken on rusted hinges. The rain was her cover, masking every footstep as she darted between rows of storage units' identical metal doors, stretching like ribs into darkness. Her breath fogged in the damp air as she counted down. 113, 115, 117. The lock gleamed under her flashlight beam. She slid the key in, her hands trembling so hard it nearly slipped. A soft click echoed like a gunshot in her ears. The door screeched upward, revealing a room swallowed in shadows. She stepped inside, shutting the door behind her. The rain faded. Silence pressed in. Her flashlight carved through the dark landing on stacks of boxes, neat rows of file cabinets, and something at the far end, a steel locker with a single word stenciled on the front in black paint. Root. Camille's stomach knotted. She crossed the room, water dripping off her hood, the beam trembling in her grip. The locker's latch popped open without resistance. Inside were files. Thousands of them, names, photos, bank ledgers. Bribes so big they could buy a city and bury a conscience in the same breath. Councilmen, judges, cops. Clay's name leered from a folder near the top. And then her breath snagged Janelle. Camille pulled the folder out, her hands cold and slick. Inside was a photo of Janelle taken the night she vanished, her dark eyes wide and wet. Below it, a single word in block letters, liability. Camille's pulse thundered as she dug deeper, finding receipts, payment orders, even transcripts of conversations. Then, buried at the bottom, a flash drive taped to a sheet of paper with 3 words scrawled in jagged ink. For Camille only. Her throat burned. She ripped it free, her chest tight, and jammed it into the laptop she'd carried in her bag. The screen lit, video loading with a sick slowness. And then Janelle appeared. Not a photo. A moving image, grainy and raw. She was tied to a chair in a dim concrete room, her face streaked with tears. Her voice trembled as she whispered, "Please, I didn't tell anyone. Please." Off camera, a man spoke, low and calm. "You should have kept quiet." The camera shifted just enough to catch his profile. Langston. Camille's hands clamped over her mouth as the screen went black, followed by a single line of text. The garden must be clean. A sound ripped through the silence, a slow clop. Camille spun, heart in her throat. Elliot stood in the doorway, rain dripping off his jacket, his silhouette sharp against the storm outside. His eyes locked on hers. "You found it," he said softly. "Good?" Her grip tightened on the flash drive. "Where's Langston?" Elliot stepped closer, his smile small and strange. "He doesn't matter now. It's just you and me." Her pulse spiked. "What did you do, Elliot?" "Don't make this harder than it has to be, Cammy." His voice dropped, low and coaxing, the way it used to when he wanted her to trust him. "Give me the drive. We'll walk out of here alive." Camille stared at him, the truth crashing like thunder. Langston hadn't lied. Elliot had been part of this all along. She took a slow step back, her fingers curling around the flash drive like a blade. "No," she whispered. "Not this time." Elliot's smile vanished. His hand slid under his jacket, and the glint of a gun bloomed in the dark. "You always were stubborn," he said softly. Shame. The storm roared outside. Inside, silence cracked like a bone. Rain hammered the metal roof like a drumline for death. Camille stood frozen in the storage unit, the flash drive biting into her palm, Elliot's gun glinting in the trembling beam of her flashlight. "You don't want to do this," she whispered, her voice tight, every muscle pulled like wire. "Actually," Elliot said softly, "I do." He took one step forward, his shadow spilling long across the concrete floor. "You think you're a hero, Cammy? You think you can blow this open and live to write about it? That's not how the world works." "You worked for him," she spat, the taste of betrayal sharp as blood in her mouth. "All these years you were feeding him everything." Elliot's face was stone. "You don't understand. Langston doesn't lose. You get in his way. You vanish. Like Janelle. Like Maya. I was trying to keep you alive. By selling me out?" Her voice cracked, raw and jagged. "By putting my name on that list?" His jaw flexed. "I didn't put your name on the list. Langston did. The second you started asking questions again, you were dead." He raised the gun higher. "Give me the drive, Camille. It's the only way you walk out of here breathing." The words slammed into her like fists. But behind the fear, something else flared, something molten and merciless. "No," she said. And she moved. Camille hurled the flashlight straight at his face. The beam spun wild as Elliot cursed, gun jerking sideways. She dove behind the metal shelving as the shot exploded, deafening in the small space. A box split open, papers spraying like confetti of sins. Another shot cracked. Sparks jumped from the locker as a bullet kissed steel. Camille crawled low, her fingers scrabbling for anything, a weapon, a lifeline, until they closed around a heavy crowbar near the floor. Elliot's voice floated through the dark, calm as a sermon. "Don't make this harder, Cammy. You were always the smart one. Don't go out stupid." She gritted her teeth, heart pounding like war drums, and gripped the crowbar tight. When his shadow stretched past the shelving, she swung with everything in her. The metal connected with a sickening thud. Elliot grunted, stumbling, the gun clattering from his hand. Camille lunged for it, fingers closing around cold steel just as Elliot tackled her to the floor. They crashed into the concrete, his hands clawing for her wrists. The gun skittered out of reach. Their breaths came ragged, hot, violent. "You think you can win this?" Elliot snarled, pinning her down. "You're nothing without me." Camille's eyes burned with fury, her nails digging into his arm. "I was everything before you." She slammed her knee up hard, enough to break his hold, enough to send him sprawling. Her hand found the gun. She spun, breath tearing from her chest, and aimed. Elliot froze, blood slicking his temple, eyes wide with something almost like sadness. "Don't," he whispered. "You're not a killer." Camille's hands shook so hard the barrel wavered. Rain roared on the roof. For one fractured second, she saw him the way he used to be laughing in some old diner, calling her Cammy like it meant safety. Then she saw Janelle, Maya, the white roses bleeding on glass. The shot cracked like thunder. Elliot crumpled, his eyes empty of everything but rainlight. Camille stood there trembling, the gun sagging in her hand, tears hot on her cheeks. By the time she staggered into the night, her jacket was soaked and heavy. The flash drive zipped inside an inner pocket like a second heart. She didn't run. She walked head low, hood up until the glow of the Eden sign faded behind her, like a nightmare in reverse. The city stretched before her, neon bleeding into wet pavement. Somewhere out there, Langston was smiling, thinking he'd broken her, but the truth was no longer his. It lived in her pocket. She had everything now: files, names, proof of murders dressed as disappearances. It was enough to burn his empire to ash, if she could survive long enough to publish it. 3 days later, the Chicago Tribune hit the streets. Camille bought a copy with shaking hands, her breath catching as she flipped to page A3. An obituary waited there. Not hers, not Elliot's. Short, clinical, a single line standing out like a razor. He will be remembered for his generosity and his tireless service to the city. Camille read it twice, her stomach a hollow drum. She knew better. Langston didn't kill himself. Someone cleaned the garden. A soft wind curled through the street, tugging the paper from her fingers. It skittered across wet asphalt, folding over itself like a secret swallowed by rain. Camille pulled her hood tighter and walked on, the flash drive burning in her pocket like the last match in a dark world. She wasn't dead. Not yet. But in Chicago, the dead never really stay buried. What you just heard wasn't the full story. It was the part someone tried to bury. The part that didn't fit the headline. The part where a person, not a suspect, was lost in the process. This case showed us what happens when the system moves too fast, or not at all. When suspicion weighs more than truth. When justice shows up late or never. But here's the thing. If these stories don't leave us asking questions, they'll keep repeating with different names. So if this one meant something to you, don't just move on. Talk about it. Question it. Pass it on. Because silence protects the wrong side of history. And sometimes the only thing standing between truth and erasure is someone who chooses to care. Like, share, comment. Let the next chapter begin with awareness, not regret.